Your printer just locked itself, and neither Epson nor Canon wants you to know why. Not a jam, not an empty cartridge. It refused to print and flash service required. You called support, they said, bring it to a service center or just buy a new one. Here's what they did not say. Your printer is almost certainly not broken. There's a counter buried in the firmware that has been incrementing since day one, and when it hits a number an engineer decided years ago, the printer shuts itself down permanently, unless you know how to reset it. The first method costs nothing and takes 60 seconds. That is exactly what this video covers. Every inkjet printer, Epson, Canon, Brother, HP, runs periodic cleaning cycles to keep the nozzles from clogging and degrading print quality. So the printer flushes itself at every power on, at every cartridge change, on a background schedule you cannot see or disable. On Epson EcoTank models, the very first setup runs an especially aggressive initialization that pulls ink through the entire system from scratch. That sequence alone consumes 30 to 50% of the starter fill. You have printed 0 pages and nearly half your ink is already gone. It went into the waste ink absorber, a dense foam pad inside the bottom of the chassis. Every cleaning cycle pushes excess ink off the nozzles and into that pad. The counter is not a physical sensor. No float, no moisture detector, nothing measuring actual volume. It is a number in firmware that increments every time a cleaning cycle runs. When that number crosses the threshold the manufacturer set, the firmware assumes the pad is saturated and shuts the printer down completely. Not a warning, not a slowdown. A hard lockout that cannot be cleared from the control panel. The counter tracks cycles, not ink. A printer used heavily for photos triggers longer, more intensive cleaning cycles and hits the limit faster. A printer switched off at the wall every day logs a full initialization cycle every time it powers back on. The same aggressive flush as day one. In many cases, when owners open the printer after lockout, the pad is not even at half capacity. The counter said, stop, so the printer stopped. Epson's official guidance is to call a service center, which charges $40 to $80 depending on the model. On a printer that originally cost $65, that math does not work. Here's what Epson does not tell you. They publish a one-time reset utility on their own support website. Free, no login, no purchase. It connects over USB and resets the waste ink counter to 0 in under a minute. The page is epson.com, support 00819. That utility is official, and the customer service team will not mention it unless you ask. Start there. If your counter has not been reset before, the page costs you nothing. Before you run the reset, make one decision. Are you also replacing the physical pad? The counter resets regardless of pad condition. That is a separate question. If the printer is under 3 years old and used moderately for documents, the pad is almost certainly not saturated. Reset the counter and keep printing. If the printer is older or heavily used for photos, replace the pad at the same time. Replacement pads are available on Amazon for $8 to $15. Search your model number plus waste ink pad replacement. To access it, flip the printer, remove 4 Phillips screws from the bottom cover, slide out the waste ink tray, swap the pad, reseat everything, then reset the counter. If the free Epson utility has already been run once, it will not run again. The tool logs usage. Your next option is the WIC reset utility at w.support. It downloads free and shows your counter percentage before you spend anything. A single reset key costs $9.99. Enter it with the printer connected, the counter resets, the printer unlocks. Total cost, including a new pad, roughly $18 to $20, done once every 3 to 5 years. Now the part almost nobody covers. The single behavior that burns through your counter fastest is cutting wall power between sessions. Every time a printer loses power and comes back on, it runs the same full initialization as the first day. That 30 to 50% flush, 365 times a year if you do it daily. Leave the printer in sleep mode instead. Plugged in, display off, just idle. It wakes without running an initialization sequence, and the difference over 3 years adds up. That one change costs nothing. Canon printers carry an identical system under different codes. Error 5B0, P08, and P10 on Canon inkjets are all counter-based lockouts, and the pad access, reset process, and utility options follow the same logic. If you have a Canon showing one of those codes, everything covered here applies. One more thing worth knowing. In France, consumer protection law ruled that programming a functional device to stop at a preset counter constitutes planned obsolescence, and Epson was required to offer counter resets for free. In Canada and the United States, no equivalent legislation exists. The utility at epson.com/support.wa00819 is the closest thing North American customers have to that protection, and almost nobody knows it is there. Your printer is not broken. The pad may not even be close to full. There's a number in firmware that someone decided was the end of your printer's life. You now know exactly how to change it. If this saved you from a trash run, share it with someone who needs it.